Diptyka Laurent joins me for a look through the papers now. Hi, Dipty.
Hi, Sanam.
Looks like Saudi Arabia is finally, after several weeks, admitting to the murder of Jamal Khashoggi, who they say died in the consulate in a fistfight.
That's right. After saying they didn't know what happened, the Saudi foreign minister, who you see on the front page of the Saudi paper Arab News, said yesterday that Khashoggi was murdered in a fistfight, and panicked consular officials rolled his body in a rug and took it away. Now, the press has been sort of scoffing at this version. The Middle East Eye's latest report contradicts this version of events. The website reporting that Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman's bodyguard took a body part of Khashoggi with him as he fled Istanbul on a private jet. The journalist's body, according to the Middle East Eye, was cut up in 15 pieces, corresponding to Turkish reports that a team of 15 Saudi officials were sent to the consulate.
Now, you've been taking a look at regional press in the Middle East, and of course the scandals really put the Saudis in a difficult position.
Diplomatically, indeed, Sanam. Let's show you this cartoon from Al Arabi Al Jadid. It's clear what this cartoonist thinks, at least. The severed hand of Khashoggi there, literally starting to choke Mohammed bin Salman in this illustration. For the Turkish paper Daily Sabah, the crime was committed behind closed doors, and now Khashoggi's murder is unraveling for the Saudis. The details around his death driving the Saudis into a tight corner.
And of course, Dipty, the Saudis' very questionable explanation, the toing and froing, it's been slammed, and this doesn't come as a surprise by opinion pages.
Well, we're looking at the Wall Street Journal. Their editors, their editorial today, they say, and I quote, "That must have been some lopsided brawl with a 59-year-old journalist confronting multiple security agents as if he were Liam Neeson in Taken." And indeed, the extraordinary nature of the scandal has been compared to movies, because it does feel like the stuff of a film. The journal's editors also lambast Donald Trump's reaction to the scandal, his initial skepticism, saying that the U.S. certainly should preserve its alliance with the Saudis, while, I quote, making it clear that murdering journalists is not acceptable. Now, from the Telegraph, you've got former Foreign Secretary Boris Johnson, who's accusing the Saudis of a, quote, pitiful series of cock and bull stories, accusing Riyadh of essentially copying the playbook of Vladimir Putin and the attempted killing earlier this year of Sergei and Yulia Skripal. Johnson writes here, Britain and Saudi Arabia have common interests, but at moments like this, it's a job of a friend to tell the truth. The truth is that the killing of Khashoggi was a barbaric act.
Certainly the playbook of any totalitarian state out there. Now, let's move on. A national apology has been issued to the survivors of institutional sex abuse in Australia by the Prime Minister.
It's an historic moment for Australians, a historic national apology from Prime Minister Scott Morrison to tens of thousands of victims of sexual abuse in Australian institutions dating back decades. Schools, churches, youth groups, sports clubs, foster homes, orphanages, charities. I mean, the list just goes on. In Parliament today was one woman who many survivors wanted to meet. That was former Prime Minister Julia Gillard. Now, she was the one who, as Prime Minister, ordered the Royal Commission 5 years ago. And in today's Sydney Morning Herald, she writes that she was actually hesitant about instigating the commission for fear that it could stall, for fear that it could be too painful for the victims, for fear that it would lead nowhere. But in the end, she did obviously instigate that commission. More than 16,000 people came forward with their horrific experiences. She calls today's apology a milestone in the healing process, but says the ultimate lesson should be never should it ever happen again.
Dipty, there's a movie coming out about, of course, very renowned war correspondent Marie Colvin, who died in Syria in 2012. Tell us about that.
That's right. The film is called A Private War. It traces the last decade in particular of Marie Colvin's career, reporting from the front lines of Sri Lanka, Iraq, Afghanistan, Libya and Syria. The renowned correspondent for the British paper The Sunday Times, she lost her eye, of course, in Sri Lanka in 2001, and later then her life in 2012 in Syria. The new biopic is directed by Oscar-nominated filmmaker Matthew Heineman. He says his film is as much an homage to Marie as it is to the profession of journalism, which is ever more under threat.
And of course, in the coming month, I believe in November, a book is being released by Marie Colvin's friend and fellow journalist, British reporter Lindsay Hilsum. I look forward to reading that. Now, we're going to end, thankfully, on a lighter note, given the news cycle today. Researchers say they've figured out why people crave steak, which I often do.
Well, if you do often crave steak, then Sanam, it's apparently because you're very anxious about your social status.
Good God.
This was an experiment run by Australian researchers. They asked a group of business major undergrads to rate their perceived life satisfaction post-college. Upon leaving, they were allowed to take as many bags of beef jerky as they wanted. What researchers found is those who said they were less happy with their lives took home more beef jerky. Not sure if it was because of that or just because they had the munchies. Researchers say if you want to cut down on meat, then you need to improve how you see your socio-economic status.
I'm going to take a close look at myself. Dipti, thank you so much for that press review. Of course, if you want to get more information on what Dipti's been telling us about, you can go to our website. That's www.france24.com.